Welcome to Blackman Folktales. Kindly subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also like and share. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell, as this means the whole world to us. Eliza had grown used to being invisible. From the day she was left at the orphanage as a baby, passed from one indifferent caretaker to the next, she learned that the world had no place carved out just for her. She didn't even know the sound of her mother's voice, only the silence of absence. The stuffed rabbit clutched to her chest, its fur matted and one ear torn, was the only remnant of a past she could not remember. By the time she was 9, she had already endured more rejection than most adults face in a lifetime. Families came and went through the orphanage doors, bright-eyed couples with rehearsed smiles, weary parents looking for another child to complete their home, even older couples seeking companionship. Eliza had stood in the lineup countless times, small hands clasped nervously, hoping this time someone would see her. But the answer was always the same. Families wanted babies, not a girl with big hollow eyes who flinched when strangers reached out. They wanted children who laughed easily, not a girl whose silence carried too many unspoken stories. Each time another child left, her heart ached in quiet defeat, until eventually she stopped hoping altogether. She convinced herself that she was unworthy of belonging, that she was the girl no one wanted. That belief sank so deeply into her bones that it shaped the way she carried herself, shoulders hunched, gaze fixed on the ground, always preparing for disappointment before it arrived. Life outside the orphanage offered no relief. When funding ran dry and the building became too crowded, Eliza was one of the first to be cast aside. The director, with tired eyes and a cold voice, told her that she was too difficult to place, words that seared into her mind like a brand. She wandered the streets after that, living on scraps, sleeping beneath bus shelters and under bridges, her stuffed rabbit tucked beneath her shirt to protect it from the rain. She knew what hunger felt like, not the kind that made you crave lunch but the kind that twisted your insides until you thought your body might break. She knew what it was like to feel the sting of other children's laughter when she passed, the way shopkeepers shooed her away as though she were filth. Nights were the hardest. The city quieted, but her mind didn't. Loneliness crept in, whispering that she would always be alone, that no one would ever love her, that she would remain invisible until the day she faded away completely. On those nights she would press her face into the worn fabric of her rabbit, pretend it was someone's arms around her and whisper, "Just one person, just one." But no one came. At least, not until that stormy night when fate placed her in the path of someone who was never supposed to notice her. The rain fell like 1,000 needles as Eliza huddled beneath a broken bus shelter, her thin jacket soaked through, her body trembling from more than the cold. She curled her knees to her chest, her rabbit pressed tight against her heart, watching cars blur past in streaks of light. None of them slowed. Why would they? She was just another shadow in the city, a forgotten child no one wanted. But then headlights cut through the storm, slowing near the curb. A sleek black car stopped, its engine humming softly and the tinted window rolled down. Eliza froze, gripping her rabbit tighter, ready to run if danger appeared. But instead of a harsh voice or mocking laugh, she heard a calm, steady tone. "Are you alone?" The man inside was older, impeccably dressed, his face chiseled yet weary, eyes sharp yet strangely gentle. His name, though she didn't know it then, was Daniel Cross, the billionaire whose name was whispered in boardrooms and printed in magazines, a man untouchable in every sense. Yet here he was in the middle of the night, speaking not to the city's elite but to a trembling orphan no one wanted. Their eyes locked, and for the first time in her life, Eliza saw recognition instead of rejection. Daniel didn't just see a ragged girl on the street. He saw himself years ago, a boy abandoned and forgotten, waiting for someone to choose him. That moment, brief as lightning, was the spark that would set both their lives on a path neither could have imagined. Eliza didn't answer him right away, but deep inside, for the first time in years, she felt the faintest flicker of something she thought she had lost forever: hope. The days in Daniel's mansion began quietly, like whispers that dared not rise above the marble halls. Eliza at first had been withdrawn, a shadow that moved silently through corridors she didn't trust. Her world had been harsh, and kindness was an unfamiliar stranger she wasn't sure she could believe in. Yet Daniel, carrying the patience of a man who had known his own share of loneliness, approached her not with the demands of a guardian but with the gentleness of a man determined to rebuild something fragile. He never forced her to talk, never scolded her for the way she recoiled from affection, but instead left small offerings in her path, books stacked neatly on her nightstand, her favorite strawberry jam placed at breakfast without a word, and a soft nightlight glowing in her room when the darkness pressed too close. Slowly these gestures chipped away at her defenses. Eliza began to notice that Daniel wasn't pretending. His kindness wasn't a mask, nor was it fleeting. Each day she found herself daring to trust him a little more, her suspicion loosening its grip in the presence of someone who wasn't trying to take from her, but to give. As weeks turned into months, a rhythm formed between them, unspoken at first, then comfortable, almost like music played without instruments. Daniel would return from long hours in his study and find Eliza sketching in the garden, her pencil capturing flowers and the wandering birds she observed from the safety of stone benches. He would sit beside her, offering no commentary, just presence, until eventually she began to tell him stories of her drawings, weaving little fictions about the birds being explorers and the roses being queens. For Daniel, these moments were nothing short of miraculous. With every word Eliza spoke, he glimpsed the child she could have been if life had not been so unkind, the playful, imaginative girl hidden beneath scars of mistrust. In nurturing her creativity, Daniel found himself healing as well. Memories of his own orphan past, the hunger and the aching absence of love, softened each time he looked at her. What once had been his deepest wound began to feel like a bridge that connected them. He began to realize that in saving Eliza, he was also saving a part of himself, reclaiming the childhood he had been robbed of through the joy reflected in her laughter. But not all eyes were blind to the changes in Daniel's life. In the world outside his walls, whispers began to circulate among his business associates. They noticed his frequent absences from critical meetings, his sudden interest in anonymous charitable donations, and his quiet retreat from the spotlight. For a man who had built an empire on decisiveness and visibility, such behaviors raised questions. Board members speculated about his mental state, some even wondering if he had a secret mistress or a hidden illness. His trusted aides began reporting unusual transactions, funds redirected into shelters, orphanages receiving generous endowments, and properties quietly purchased in rundown neighborhoods. Daniel, however, remained unshaken by the murmurs of suspicion. His world had narrowed to the small, significant moments with Eliza, the way she would run to greet him after a long day, the way her voice began to carry warmth instead of ice. Still, beneath his calm exterior, attention grew. He knew that secrets, no matter how noble, could not stay hidden forever, and the cost of revelation might fall hardest on the very child he was trying to protect. Time has a way of reminding even the strongest men that they are mortal. Daniel's vigor, once admired as tireless, began to falter under the quiet weight of illness. At first, he hid it well, covering coughs with his handkerchief, brushing off fatigue as the toll of endless work. But Eliza, now attuned to him in ways no one else was, noticed. She saw the way his hands trembled when he poured tea, the way his once commanding stride slowed to cautious steps, and how his eyes lingered on her as though memorizing every detail. When she confronted him, Daniel did not offer excuses. Instead, he took her hand and explained that life had given him little time left, but that every moment with her had been worth more than all the billions he owned. He revealed the documents he had been preparing in silence, his will transferring everything to her. Not because of wealth, he whispered, his voice frayed by both emotion and weakness, but because I want you to never again feel like you are unwanted, unseen, or forgotten. For Eliza, the words shattered her heart. She had only just begun to believe in permanence, in love that stayed, and now she was being asked to prepare for its loss. Yet in that moment she realized Daniel was not leaving her empty. He was leaving her with the greatest gift, a sense of belonging. When Daniel's final days arrived, the mansion grew still, its vast halls echoing with grief and unspoken farewells. Eliza stayed by his side, holding his hand through nights that seemed endless, reading aloud from the books he loved, and offering him comfort in the same quiet way he once gave to her. The inevitable came gently, like a candle extinguishing rather than shattering. Daniel passed away in his sleep, his lips curved in a faint smile, as though content with the legacy he left behind. Eliza's world, once filled with abandonment and mistrust, was broken open by grief, but also lit by the knowledge that she had been chosen, loved, and made family by a man who owed her nothing and gave her everything. The world outside, however, did not remain still. The media soon uncovered the hidden truth. The billionaire who had captivated headlines with his deals and success had secretly adopted an orphan girl. Headlines exploded with intrigue, curiosity, and scandal. Some called it eccentric, others romanticized it as noble, but for Eliza, it was simply the story of the man who gave her a reason to live. She refused to let the noise of the world cheapen his sacrifice. As the storm of publicity swirled, Eliza found herself thrust into a spotlight she had never sought. Reporters clamored for statements, business associates demanded explanations, and opportunists circled like vultures. But when she finally stood before the cameras, she carried herself with a strength Daniel had unknowingly cultivated within her. She did not speak of wealth, nor of power, but of love. She announced the creation of the Daniel Hart Foundation for Abandoned Children, dedicated to giving others what she had once been denied: a home, a chance, a voice. Her words cut through the noise, not with grandeur but with truth. I was the orphan no one wanted until someone chose me. And now I choose to be that voice for others. In that moment, the world saw not a billionaire's heir, but a young woman transformed by love and loss into a beacon of hope. Daniel's legacy lived on, not in skyscrapers or financial empires, but in the heart of a girl who had once been forgotten and was now determined to ensure no child ever felt that way again. The mansion that once kept their secret bond now stood as a symbol of a story that could never be silenced. that love, even when hidden, has the power to change the world. Thank you for watching. Kindly subscribe to our YouTube channel for more videos, as this means a lot to us.